Hello, and welcome to this week's class. In this week's class, we're going to talk about some ideas around the foundations of entrepreneurship. So we're going to talk a little about the landscape of entrepreneurship, some surveys done of entrepreneurs, what some of the characteristics are, and what some of the opportunities are. So first of all, the world of entrepreneurship, especially in the U.S., is very vibrant. So if you think about this, in the U.S. alone, there's over 500,000 new businesses starting every month in the United States. So that's a huge churn of new businesses, new ideas, new business models coming forward. The entrepreneurial spirit, it's something that's celebrated, particularly in the U.S., as something that's desirable. A lot of people are interested in starting their own businesses. So there's a lot of talk and thought about being that entrepreneur. In fact, in a GEM study, 12.7% of adult population in the United States is actively involved in trying to start a new business. So it's on the minds and hearts of a lot of people. The Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, again, the GEM study, showed that men are twice as likely to start a business as women. Having said that, there is growing emphasis. There's a lot of trends that are showing that women more and more are getting involved in starting their own types of ventures. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Entrepreneurs are most likely to launch their business between 35 and 44. And there's some practical reasons for that. One of the reasons is often you don't get inspired to start a business until you've had a career, right? So by the time you've had a career, you've gotten some professional skills that maybe you can organize a business around. The other reason is quite often it's not till your 30s or 40s until you have the capital and assets and resources to actually launch that business. Now, it's not to say that young people, teenagers, aren't launching businesses. As a professor of entrepreneurship, in any given class, I might have 8 or 9 startups a semester. But largely, this trend of 35 to 44 is pretty consistent. Most people see entrepreneur activity as a good career choice. And again, that's not everywhere in the world. Some parts of the world, it's kind of frowned on, the idea of not, getting a career job with a company, but starting out on your own. But it's very much, especially a part of the entrepreneurial spirit in the United States. Some definitions around entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur, one who creates a business in the face of risk and uncertainty for the purposes of achieving profit and growth by identifying opportunities and assembling the necessary resources to capitalize on them. So that's our textbook's definition. Sort of the definition I have around entrepreneurship is, in my mind, entrepreneurs do 2 things. They identify opportunities and they manage risks. And to me, it's those 2 dynamics that are key to entrepreneurship. Understanding opportunities, looking at different ways of being creative, looking at different contexts, and seeing where there are opportunities to create value that forms a business. At the same time, that creativity, that spark, that drive is very important, but not without doing the homework and managing those risks. So you're really doing both things. And of course, you're looking at risk versus reward. Does the managing of that risk, am I compensated enough within this idea to make all of that risk management worth it that I'm taking? We talk about different characteristics of entrepreneurs, desire for responsibility, which is important because you take on a lot of responsibilities. I mean, think of starting a business as starting a project. And there's a lot of different things that get involved with a project. There's timing, there's different things that have to happen, from starting a business to acquiring customers, acquiring trusted vendors and business partners. Having said that, it sounds like a very risky proposition, But overall, most entrepreneurs are pretty moderate in their risk. They're not huge risk takers, because as an entrepreneur, it's always an exercise of opportunity versus managing those risks. So you want to be really careful about what you're willing to risk. In fact, in an earlier class, we talked about the whole idea of working with your resources in hand, calculating your affordable risk. So those are all things that are meant to drive the amount of risk that you take down. Self-reliance. On one hand, entrepreneurship involves being social, reaching out, getting help. But there are a lot of parts of the entrepreneurship experience that really requires you to be that self-starter, self-reliance. Confidence and ability to succeed. I don't say so much that it's a blind confidence, like I can do anything. It's more a self-efficacy kind of confidence, a belief in your ability to execute a plan. Determination that goes along with it. Desire for immediate feedback. One of the things that attracts many to being an entrepreneur is you get that direct feedback. In other words, the product of your work is either accepted or not. You get immediate feedback from your customers, from your vendors, from your business partners. So it's very rich in that kind of immediate knowledge and communication. High level of energy. Having said that, a high level of energy comes from somewhere, and it comes from that dedication and that drive to fulfill a certain vision that you have. So it's not just having a high energy level, but having a high energy level because you believe in what you're doing. A future orientation. So that can be taken a lot of different ways, but part of a future orientation is the ability to look at opportunities, which is very much a future-looking kind of exercise, as well as forming strategies and long-term plans. Those all require a good future orientation. Skilled in organizing. Not every entrepreneur is a skilled organizer, but you have to get there, right? You have to learn those organizational skills to meet all the tasks and demands that are required of starting a business. And value achievement over money. In other words, what do you want to achieve? Where do you see your business going? Because the money part, the profit part comes later, right? That comes after you've developed your vision. Entrepreneurs also tend to exhibit a high degree of commitment. There has to be a real grit component to every entrepreneur, and a tolerance for ambiguity. In other words, the entrepreneurial journey isn't one where you say, here are the 5 steps I'm taking, and at the end, I'm a successful business person. It's a journey. It's a marathon. Things happen. Things change. The economies change. During this pandemic, I know many business owners who launched restaurants and gyms, and those were set to launch right at the beginning of the pandemic. So things change. So you have to sort of embrace that ambiguity that comes with the dynamics of having a business. Creativity. I know in previous classes we've talked about creativity, which can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be things that are completely novel. It can be just the way you arrange things or the context of things that can cause that creative spark to go. Flexibility is always needed for the entrepreneur, as well as resourcefulness, right? When you start, the resources aren't readily there for you, so you have to be very good at managing your resources. Willing to work hard, and again, going back, tenacity, code word for having that grit to go forward. So in surveys that have been done on entrepreneurs, some of the most important qualities that entrepreneurs realize to them are important are having that vision and passion and drive. In other words, every entrepreneur should not only identify a problem or a need out in the market that they can solve, but what is your point of view on how you're going to solve that problem or fulfill that need? And part of that is what makes the vision and the mission come alive. Along with that, innovation, risk-taking, And a word about innovation. Innovation doesn't always have to be a very novel, product-centered exercise. Sometimes innovation can happen in the way you price or the way you sell or the way your business model is structured. Risk-taking, resilience, a proactive approach. In other words, don't wait for problems. Don't wait for the customer to come to the door. You come to them. Relentless customer focus. Without customers, there is no business. So you have to be really attentive to what is actually driving value and what's the perceived value that the customer has in your business. One characteristic that stands out is diversity. Anyone can start a business. I've worked with teenagers, kids in grade school who have started successful businesses. Likewise, about a week ago, I had a client who was starting his first business at 83. So you can start it at any time, age, race, gender, national origin. The one sort of even playing field is that entrepreneurial spirit, and it can come in a lot of forms from a lot of different people. So it's not too late and it's not too early to see if you can add value through entrepreneurship. Some of the benefits of being an entrepreneur is sort of creating your own destiny, right? You're creating your own career track. You're making a difference. I don't know any business, whether it's a dry cleaner or a gas station or a tech company, that doesn't feel that they're not making a difference somehow in their community. Reaching your full potential. Reap impressive profits, but that comes with time. Contribute to society, be recognized for your efforts. If you talk to so many small businesses, as much as they're passionate about their business, they're equally passionate about the neighborhood they live in, the society that they're in. A lot of small businesses give back through their philanthropy, through their support, whether it's a Little League team or whether it's being a voice for advocacy in their own community. And doing what you enjoy and having fun at it. Now, of course, there are drawbacks to entrepreneurship, right? Uncertainty of income. A lot of entrepreneurs have to live well below their expected standard of living to maintain and reinvest in their business. Losing your entire investment, that's a reality, and that's why it's important to calculate your acceptable loss. Long hours and hard work is a given. Lower quality of life, again, that quality of life is often a lot lower because you're putting so many resources into your business. So at least initially that has to be done. And high levels of stress. And this can be both positive and negative stress. I've seen entrepreneurs stressed about money problems and negative things happening with their business. Equally, when you're when you're involved in a high growth business, that can also be stressful. So some of the sources of stress that are common to a lot of entrepreneurs is losing their business, repaying personal debts, losing clients, bringing in new clients. So those can be equally stressful. I've seen entrepreneurs that love to get new clients but aren't as good at retaining them. And ones that retain clients for years but really don't know how to really maintain a consistent drive to get new clients. Their health and well-being, being on call, repaying business debt. So as you can see, there's a lot of financial considerations that cause stress. One opportunity that we're seeing more and more and more is online retail sales. This was building far before the pandemic, but when the pandemic has started this last year, it's gone even more adoption on retail sales. So what does this mean to the entrepreneur? This means that if you're not in the online marketplace, in a lot of ways, you don't exist as a business. So becoming known online, understanding how your digital branding and footprint play a role in the success of your business is very, very important. we see a lot of opportunities within the diversity of entrepreneurship, a lot of young entrepreneurs. And with the digital age, it's easier and easier for young entrepreneurs to get their start, especially in an economy that's so heavily based on services. Women entrepreneurs, there's all kinds of resources. SBA has just launched a series of tools for women entrepreneurs to help them find the resources they need. Grant programs, women's business centers. These are all things that are meant to help drive and promote those women entrepreneurs. And minority-owned enterprises. There's a rich history of entrepreneurship in especially first-generation Americans. If we look at the growth, there's been a huge spike in growth of entrepreneurship within the Hispanic population, as well as continuing growth in African American and Asian population, other minorities. So this speaks volumes about the importance of the role of minorities in the development of new business creation. Another part of the diversity is the type of business that we see. More and more we're seeing home-based businesses flourish, from food businesses to consulting businesses, crafting businesses. In fact, in the state of California, the #1 source of employment is self-employment. So that's a growing trend, and that's something to look at. We often think about the high-growth businesses, the gazelles, but we often don't think about those solid home-based businesses that provide vital revenues for their business owners. Family businesses, multi-generational businesses are still an important part of our economy. Co-preneurs, in other words, entrepreneurs getting together to form alliances that form companies. Corporate cast-offs. A lot of entrepreneurs come from corporate life and then decide to give up that corporate life for their entrepreneurial life. So you have these both dropouts of corporate and corporate cast-offs. So in other words, in a corporate cast-off, you have divisions of businesses that are spun off into smaller businesses. We also see a growing trend of larger corporations funding venture capital for smaller businesses that then they absorb into the larger company as well. Retiring baby boomers. So there's a huge trend of more and more people retiring. Those baby boomers, which was a huge part of our population, they're now retiring, but they're finding that they're driven to starting their own businesses, starting their own ventures. A little bit about the power. So why are we concerned about this? Well, small businesses in the U.S. make up 99.7% of the 27.8 million businesses in the United States. They employ 49+ % of the nation's private sector workforce. So almost half of all Americans are working for a small business. Creating more jobs in big business. 64% of net jobs in the last decade were created by small businesses. 5% of small companies create 67% of net new jobs in the economy. And then we have these companies that are the gazelles. We have more and more companies reaching hyper growth than ever in our history. So that all adds up to a lot of jobs, opportunity, value, and economic development happening throughout our nation with small business as the engine to it. So small business by industry, it's very diverse. Now, a lot of it is centered around services, and there's good reason for that. It's a lot easier to launch, less assets and funds are necessary to create a service-based business. But equally, we see retail, construction, wholesale, other kinds of businesses. So it is a diverse palette of kinds of businesses that make up our small business sector. Small businesses produce 46% of the nation's private GDP, and account for 47% of sales. So they're not only a workhorse in terms of jobs, but a workhorse in terms of impact on our economy. They're also a good place for innovation. In fact, small businesses create 16 times more patents per employee than larger companies. So they're a vital part of the growth, especially in the US, of technology. Now, what are some of the pitfalls that you have to avoid in becoming an entrepreneur? Know your business in depth. So if you have a business idea and it's something new, or you have a set of skills, let's say you're a skilled cook, but you don't know the restaurant business, you need to understand how that business model runs. So understanding the depth of your business, a big part of that is understanding your business model. And build a variable business model. In other words, have a business model and then test it. So there are fairly cheap and easy ways to test your business idea. It can start with simply just selling some prototypes or getting feedback from friends and family, but there's a variety of ways you can test out your business assumptions. Develop a solid business plan. Now, a business plan in and of itself isn't necessarily the key to success, but answering the critical questions that are within a business plan are the important thing. Understand financial statements. Now, of all the entrepreneurs I meet, so many are reticent, so many are scared of financials, but it's something you have to embrace. Understand the numbers that are important to your business and that drive your business. Know those ratios and indicators that tell you whether your business is on track or failing. Manage your financial resources. What are your sources of cash? Your sources of cash can be vendors that are giving you open account credits. It can be through banks. It can be through investors. It can be through your own savings. But understand what those financial resources that you have available are. Learn to manage people. Businesses are largely made up of people, and managing talent is always a challenge. So you have to manage people effectively and communicate your business vision to those employees that you have. Set your business apart from the competition. In other words, every person has a voice and every business has a unique voice. So develop what's called a point of view about the problem or need that you're solving or need that you're providing in the market. Have a unique point of view about that. And having a point of view is part of that exercise of developing your personal brand. And maintain a positive attitude. Again, a business is something that's a marathon and not a sprint. You have to be in for the long run. Along with a positive attitude is your mindset towards your own attitude. There's an author, her name is Carol Dweck, and she wrote a book called Mindset. And she talks about two different mindsets, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. In the fixed mindset says that every time I have a failure, it's a personal judgment of my character and personality. In a growth mindset, a failure is simply an opportunity to learn. It's part of the learning process. The growth mindset allows the entrepreneur to strategize and think and get through pitfalls more effectively because there's less, for lack of better words, psychological baggage that goes with failure. So I hope this introduction has you've learned from. And again, if you have any questions, please feel to reach out for me. And until next time, we'll see you later.